But when you look at the volume of oil trades, it's got to have jumped exponentially. And on top of it, like you just pointed out, Terry, there is so much supply. I don't see how this price goes higher. But what happens if Venezuela is sanctioned out and they can't move any oil beyond their borders?
Well, I mean, I don't know what it does to the overall price except take some product off the marketplace. And that's always an issue, Liz. I mean, if you remove 10% of the U.S. production, that could be a potential issue. But like I mentioned earlier, at these levels, explorers are going in and getting more and more oil out each and every day. And people aren't talking about the natural gas story either, Liz, which I think is just as important.
Well,
you know, right now
yeah.
we're getting... Well, I mean, you got 400-year supply of natural gas here in the United States. We're going to be probably the biggest exporter of natural gas, do it in a liquefied process. And more vehicles around the world will be running on gas products, so on natural gas products, not so much on the crude refined products. So that's a different component which might mitigate the upside to the oil story. I think oil, it could be very volatile, but I don't think we're going to see the prices we saw just as little as 3-4 years ago.
Well, natural gas is up about 1% right now at $2.82 per thermal unit. So as we then transition, you guys also trade all kinds of futures products, including Fed funds futures at the CME. Yeah. By the way, we're obsessed with your website on a daily basis. Ooh, what are they going to do in September? What's the probability of a rate hike in December? Let's look at some of those right now. Probability of a December rate hike is under 50%. Does that mean you're seeing less volume there? And how much credibility, or I should say, which do you believe more? Fed funds futures about whether we will see a rate hike in September or December, or do you believe in what the Fed says?
Well, that is actually an interesting question, because if you look at what the Fed has said over the last several years, they wanted to see several different economic factors happen, such as unemployment at certain levels. They wanted to make sure there was no inflation, and then they would look to raise rates. Well, they didn't do that. So now the market, you know, the Fed funds futures were pricing in rate hikes over the last couple of years, and it didn't happen. So the Fed, I actually think, and I said this to your friend Neil Cavuto, I think it actually they confused the market a little bit. So you got to be careful here who you believe, because the market, you know, typically is always correct. But if the leadership in the Fed is going to indicate that they're going to either raise rates or not, and then they don't follow through, well, then that's a problem, especially when the indicators were reached. So now, I mean, Liz, I got to be honest with you, I think the story might be on the other side, not inflation, but deflation.
Really? Okay,
yeah,
that would be or disinflation, which is the falling rate of the rise in inflation. I know that's a little confusing, but what will happen then? Quickly, Terry, because we got to run, but I'm very interested to know.
Well, I don't know what will happen ultimately, because, you know, I think a lot of people have been wrong when they look at the markets here over the last couple of years, because they keep going up and interest rates keep staying down. But, you know, if you get into a deflationary story where there's just so much product around, eventually people don't buy it. You know, it's going to be a different scenario that we're seeing right now, Liz.
Yeah. And by the way, inflation's already falling. That would be disinflation. It's at 1.4%. Previous read was 1.9. Terry, we've got to run. But I do want to say this, that Kim Jong-un in North Korea has been able to launch a missile that could hit, and I saw this in the press, either L.A., my hometown, or Chicago, your hometown. And that would mean no L.A. Kings, no Chicago Blackhawks. We got to stop this guy.
We got to stop him for other reasons besides those two sports franchises, Liz.
I know.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not a funny story, but Terry and I joke about hockey all the time.
We do, but that's a very serious story.
Come back again, Terry.
Yes.
Thank you.
I will, Liz. Thank you.
Terry's telling me, oh, it's very serious, Liz. He's the biggest joker on the planet. He's so much fun. Chairman and CEO of CME.